All right. Welcome back to another episode of Rob and Avis Ramble, where we just ramble, talk about weird stuff, talk about stuff that we normally used to talk about around our kitchen counter for fun. And we figured, hey, why not? Let's just talk about this stuff for the rest of the world, for better or for worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's been a little while. We got into a bad kind of rut here of doing this. We were doing pretty good with it, and then life just got busy. A lot of stuff's happened. Just unexpected stuff, and yeah, just a lot. Stuff's been happening.
With some travel sprinkled in.
And some travel sprinkled in there, which, we do a lot of, right? So, but we got a new camera. We're recording this with a new camera. And we were recording these on a GoPro 12, and just wasn't super happy with kind of the light performance of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like doesn't do so great in the low light. So we're trying out this Insta360 Ace Pro.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think it's going to pick up way more of my wrinkles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, well, hell, that's part of getting old. What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
Yeah, but we'll see. I'm kind of curious to see how this footage looks. And for those who have interest at all, our setup here is we have this Rodecaster. We're recording to its own track, and then we're recording with the Insta360 Pro for video. And we just have a single camera. And when you're kind of seeing the cutting that goes on and all that, that's all AI generated stuff that we're doing. We've basically feed it a couple of audio tracks. We, take the single video feed and cut it up into 3 different feeds, one with like you, one with me, one with both of us. And then we just point the AI at it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I'm saying, hey, I don't know. And let it do its thing. And it's pretty cool how it works. That, and we can record one of these and pull it in and edit it in about 30 minutes with the AI. And, so that makes it easy. Not that anybody probably really cares that much about that. So we also have some ideas about how we're maybe going to be able to do a little more of this as we're kind of out just doing our life stuff, so that we don't always have to be sitting right here to be able to do these, right? Mm-hmm. We can kind of be out. So we got some plans working for that. We're gonna try one of those soon. Anyway, let's get into it.
Right.
Man, I mean, since the last time we did one of these, it's been like 30 years worth of stuff that's happened on Twitter, right? Or X, sorry, which is like where we take a lot of our topics from.
Yeah.
But I figured we'd touch one today that in our 30 plus years of being together, maybe it's a good one that we could talk about from our perspective, or maybe we have no idea what we're talking about. And either answer is fine. So there was this post. It's from I'm guessing a red pillar. It was Red Pill Christianity. And he was talking about someone, I have no idea who this person is, but whatever this Twitter X handle is, says that women need to be the nastiest, sluttiest versions of themselves with the man they want a long-term commitment from. Most women give that version of themselves to men that they don't want a long-term commitment from, and then do not give that version of themselves to the man they want a long-term commitment of. This is essentially an unacceptable flaw of logic to men, and no women will ever overcome this backwards philosophy to build an enduring, long-lasting relationship unless she corrects this weird glitch in her logic.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, to a degree.
All right,
I mean,
episode over.
you have to meet your husband's desires, and if he doesn't desire that, well, then you got to pack that away. But I don't think that's reality.
You don't think that's most men?
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think, most men are, they would kind of rejoice at the idea of what's the word? What would be the appropriate word for me to use here? Adventurous sexual partner.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and we've kind of talked about this in our relationship over the years, right? I mean, I think, I've said to you before that, there in our relationship, we're married. We supposedly care about each other, right? So we should be giving our very best that we have to offer to one another, right? You shouldn't be holding anything back from your spouse. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
No. So, and I think that translates to, a lot in marriage. I mean, let's just forget about sex for a minute. I mean, how you're going to care for your household, how you're going to care for your, maybe if you're a man and you guys are dividing women duties from men duties, and the man is taking care of the yard and the woman's taking care of the, the household and the kitchen, like you're going to give your best in that, right? Like, why would somebody else who is not your spouse give more of an effort into the relationship than the spouse would?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that translates over to sex as well, right? So, yeah. So what do you think? And I'm not saying what that guy was saying. I don't know. I think he was saying, maybe he said most. I had to go back and look. So, but he was saying that most women are not giving. They're not kind of giving the most. I don't know what the word is I want to use. I mean, he used sluttiest.
Yeah, I was going to say slutty.
Yeah.
That's the word you're searching for.
But what does that mean? I mean, when I think of slutty, I think kind of promiscuous in a way.
Yeah, I think slutty though. Like if you talk about a girl like, oh, she's slutty, that means she's promiscuous to more than like she's just promiscuous in general. She's not selective.
Yeah. So I would kind of argue maybe just getting down to the nuances of the word. I mean, I don't know that you want your wife to be a slutty version of, whatever it is you're after, right? I mean, because that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe the word means something different to people who are younger than us these days.
I think what he's going after is you should be the most open and free sexually with your spouse.
Yes.
Like,
but what is
if it ever crossed your mind, it should definitely cross your mind with your spouse.
Yeah. And what is the word that we use for that? Like, what is the, he's saying sluttiest. Like, what do we think is a better word?
I think the word you like is submissive.
Submissive?
Yeah.
I think,
the fact that...
Well, I think submissive is, but it doesn't just apply to sex, right? I mean, submissive?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, submissive doesn't apply to sex, but it's an attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess why you're saying that is because, I mean, it's an attitude, right? So if your position is that you're going to be, submissive toward your spouse, then, you're going to, what? Help me out here. What's the word I'm looking for?
I gave you a word. You didn't like it.
It's not that I don't like it. I don't know if it's the word, if we're talking, because to me, it's a more encompassing word of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Not like necessarily just in the sexual realm. So what is it in the sexual realm? Like I almost want to say unadulterated, but I don't even know. I'm trying to think what that word even means. It feels like the right word, but I'm not looking at a dictionary to know if that's, yeah. I mean, you said free, I think.
Unhindered, maybe.
Unhindered. Maybe that's a good word. Kind of. Yeah. Like I think the point being you shouldn't hold back from your spouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't hold back. So if you're, and I don't, again, he said most, so I don't know how many relationships this is happening in. And I'm sure that we have seen relationships, of just couples that we've kind of been able to observe over time where that is kind of going on, right? I mean, like somebody, and we've known people that have had affairs and all these other things, right? And so like, are they going out and being some version of themselves with a person that they're having an affair with that they won't be with their spouse?
I think the potential exists for that, for sure.
Yeah. And what is if we're kind of driving at, like how would you, if you're saying to someone who's married and they're having, relationship troubles, and maybe this is like part of it, right? Maybe the husband or or maybe the wife, right, doesn't feel like one of the spouses is kind of fully giving of themselves sexually, you know, giving their best. Why?
Well, I think sex is an extension of your relationship, right? And so if you're not feeling secure in your relationship, like, so let's say you have a chunky spouse and
I'm working on it, right?
the other spouse has made it known that that's not appealing. So then are you going to want to get naked in front of that person?
Yeah.
No. But should you just be like, whatever, I'm not going to let that hinder my sexual side of the relationship?
So are you making a suggestion that maybe, a spouse who maybe they don't feel like they're the most attractive version of themselves. And so maybe because they have this weird dynamic where like they're not giving their best to their spouse, but that's because they feel self-conscious in front of their spouse. And you're saying in another setting, they're not feeling as self-conscious because if this is just like a one-night stand or some weirdness they don't really care about. They're like, I can be whatever I want to be and I can be as crazy as I want to be because this person's not judging me.
Right.
And is that really what it comes down to? Is it,
I know I've fallen into that trap. I mean, like after children, it takes me a while to like, after I have a baby to like get back into feeling kind of secure about my body. And, it's definitely harder.
Yeah.
And that's pressure that I put on myself. And then if I pick up any weight and I don't know, I put pressure on myself.
Yeah. And I mean, and just to be very clear, when you say you've fallen into that trap, that doesn't mean you've been out having affairs on me.
No.
Because
sorry.
that's what it kind of sounds like you're saying.
No. I meant not wanting to be like fully vulnerable.
You're not feeling like
yes.
You're not happy, right? Just to clarify, like you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, hey, this is not like the best version of myself I want to necessarily present to my husband.
Right.
And feeling very self-conscious about that.
Yes.
And then kind of having that affect,
making sex a very like cerebral thing for me, like unable to disconnect from my brain. Like, oh, if I bend over, like this extra belly weight, like, does that look good? Does that look bad?
Like the Seinfeld, like the good naked and bad
yes,
naked.
Exactly. So I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Yes, I did not fall into the trap of having an affair.
Yeah.
I take that back.
But I understand where you're, I understand what you're getting at is, and that's kind of, I think what you're getting, like that can be where that can start, right? Because you're unhappy with a version of yourself. And so now you're like, well, I don't want to be judged by my spouse or my life partner. So maybe it's easier to step out on them and, be wild and have the behavior I want to have without actually having to kind of do the thing that's going to make me feel more sexy to my spouse. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. And I think we kind of, this is a little bit feeling like it's looping around to a topic we talked about before. I don't remember when that was, which is men or women, they may not put pressure on their husbands to kind of be the best version of themselves to allow them to not be the best version of themselves, right? And then that's also kind of where that can kind of creep in. So, right. So now you're just both kind of skating along. You're not really like trying that hard.
Yeah.
Not giving your best, which I think is kind of what we were saying. You're not giving your best to your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that could be part of it.
Yeah. 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 So how does somebody who is in that predicament where they have, they've gotten to a point where they don't feel like they are, well, let me back up and let's just try to dive in maybe in a little bit. And this could be like a way like too complicated topic to really even understand because I'm sure there's a lot of nuances and inputs to it. But if because it may not just be the way that you look that's making you not feel like you want to give your sexual best to your spouse. I mean, there could be other things at play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
right?
sure. I think, like I said, I think sex is an extension of the relationship, right? It kind of reflects what's happening. Like you can't have good sex. Well, I guess you can, but in general, I don't think you're having the best sex if your relationship isn't in the best place, unless you're just disconnecting and you're only having sex. There's no like emotion behind it.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think that's why I'm struggling with like what to say. Yeah, I mean, I think that is true. Is it? Do you think? I mean, I think the things. It's a little bit different for men and women, maybe.
Yeah, well, probably men are different than women.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not. It's probably the same. I mean, it's the same outcome, but there's different factors depending on it's men or women, right?
yeah, women are more emotional.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder, like, just as a guy, like, just in the way that, like, my own brain thinks and the way I've, talked to other men that I know, it seems to me that, like, a man, like, he's not going to get as hung up on his body being a barrier to giving his sexual best to his wife as I think a woman might.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, culturally speaking, dad bod is like acceptable.
Yeah, well, I'm rocking it right now. It's great. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And so like you said earlier, women like security, so they're willing to give a little in the looks department, if the security is making up for it.
Yeah.
Where men don't need security from their woman. So, looks tends to like tip the scale up a little bit there.
Yeah. So
We have different needs, because we're different creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. We do have different needs. I mean, we see things differently, but I guess I'm a little bit struggling here to kind of picture scenarios where I mean, for some reason, maybe just because it's easier for me to look at somebody else, but I can more easily kind of see reasons why women might be holding back their sexual best, and I'm having a little bit of struggle feeling like why men might be holding back their sexual best. But is that is that because they are? I don't know. I don't know why that is. I think this is like a struggle topic for me.
You can't imagine a world where a man is not giving his all in the bedroom. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think.
What is the point of sex for a man? Maybe if you can pinpoint that, maybe that will help.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a loaded topic a little bit, right?
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's corner question time.
Yeah. What is the point of sex for a man? I mean, obviously it's like a pleasurable act, right? But what does that really mean? Because it's like, you can say it's pleasurable, but like what makes it pleasurable, right? So like, I don't know, you have to go a little deeper down. I mean, I think that's the short answer is, well, it's pleasurable. Why do people have sex? Because it's pleasurable. I mean, I know there's people out there that will say, well, the purpose of sex is for, solely for procreating. And if you're not procreating, you shouldn't be having sex. I
disagree.
Subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would just kind of say at face value, like you and I are getting to an age where even if we wanted to have more kids, like it's just getting, at some point you're going to be unable to.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's just biologically, that's what happens to women. Men can father children much longer. But like if the purpose of sex is solely procreation, does that mean when you hit that age, like that's it? Like, so as a married couple, we're like not supposed to be having sex anymore?
Yeah, that doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah. Like why? It's an important component to a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what all the reasonings are people say that. I just know that's what they say. So, and that's kind of my pushback to it is, well, now what happens when you're unable to do that? So God would be like, yeah, don't have sex. And I think that's why, I mean, God, if it was just some act that you were supposed to do to create children, like I don't think it would have to be pleasurable. And why would it still be pleasurable even when you're not capable of having children any longer? Right.
And we've discussed this before, plenty of people that are just biologically incapable. So are they supposed to never have sex?
Right. Yeah. That's why I say I don't really buy that. I just know people say it, but
I disagree with those people.
yeah. Yeah. So, we're getting off track a little bit here. So, but why is it pleasurable? I mean, what would you say as a woman?
The purpose of sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasure.
Pleasure. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And, as a married couple, pleasing your husband.
Yeah.
Like that brings a certain amount of joy on its own.
Yeah. But I think what we were getting is like what makes without getting explicit, right? We're not trying to get explicit.
No X-rated.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just mean, it's what are the components, right? So I would say for a man, obviously having an attractive woman, right? Who, and there's it's not the same exact cookie cutter template for everyone. But there are, there's guidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna have specifics people get into, right? But but just being attractive, let's just go with that. Right.
Yeah. I think that's a wide scale.
Yeah. So the man like being with an attractive woman is going to be exciting and kind of adding to that pleasure. And, having a woman who is responsive to her man's touch, right? Like that's adding to the experience, adding to the pleasure, right? And who is kind of, you're not holding back. I don't know how to say that in an unexplicit way, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But yeah. So, but for a woman, is it the exact same traits, or is it something else? Like, what is it?
Yeah. I think if you can imagine all the things that you said that men like, women like to receive.
Okay. So, kind of being the object of the thing
The affection
of the man that the man finds pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to hear you say that because, a lot of women on social media, and you're not big on social media. Like basically like this Rob Avis Ramble account that we have, like I'm pretty much running it. I don't think you're free to have access to it anytime you want. But you're just not a big social media person.
I'm not.
Right. Some women, are out there, they have pretty big social media presence and they're posting pictures of themselves and, sometimes provocative poses and those sorts of things. But kind of you saying what you just said to me now is kind of a little light bulb going on in my head, maybe just at, 50 plus years old here that,
that's why they do it.
Well, because for them, the pleasure is in being that object.
Yeah.
And I think just, and it's like, I've heard that, I know that, but I'm just, kind of like, I don't know, it's making a little more sense at the moment. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think the current term is thirst trap.
Thirst trap.
Yeah.
But kind of being the like, they call them attention whores and all those sorts of things, and they're just after it for the attention. But it does make me kind of like, yeah, okay, maybe that makes a lot of sense because if the pleasurable part of a woman is kind of being the object of that desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just take it out of sex for a minute. Like if we're in the kitchen and I walk by and you smack my butt as I walk by, like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Probably, that probably doesn't happen, any more than 25 times a day
Yeah.
at the most.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not a problem, but
Right.
yeah.
But I mean, it's just that little like, oh, okay. Yeah. He likes it,
Yeah.
So like, yeah. In my case, I'm not posting pictures. I want your affection and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, women that like I follow several accounts that are friends and they basically post nude pictures of themselves on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm just like I can't even comprehend why.
Yeah. But digging into the psychology of it, is that because they don't have a man in their life who is they're not, I mean, if what you're saying is right, and I just always say, like, we could be wrong, right? This is just our point of view of it. But,
Yeah.
if there's some wisdom and insight into what you're saying, is that because they are not, if you think about this kind of bucket of like, hey, I need to have my bucket of being, my being the object of desire bucket filled, and their husband's only filling it a quarter of the way, is like posting these kind of provocative pictures of themselves on Instagram and these other places, is that filling the rest of that bucket for them?
I feel like that could be part of it. I mean, I would also argue that some of the men are into having other men desire their wives, but then they're just like, but she's mine. Because certainly not all of these relationships, the man is not fulfilling the woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a term for that, but yeah. So you're saying you think it's kind of potentially twofold. It's one. Well, maybe it's more kind of what I'm saying is that they're not getting their bucket full, of meeting that desire. But then you're saying in some cases you think the husbands are actually encouraging it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, if we're both thinking about a particular one individual, yeah, I'm kind of seeing that.
I don't know which one you're thinking about.
Well,
but
I'm not going to say it here.
No. But in one particular case, the husband is quite often the photographer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I mean, it doesn't feel like super healthy in your relationship.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. We've discussed it here, but how naive I am with the whole OnlyFans situation and me thinking it was just photos. And you're like, but this chick has an OnlyFans and this is what she's giving away on Instagram. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's a little surprising how many people out there are doing like OnlyFans. And,
yeah,
we have this hobby that we do that doesn't have anything to do with sex. It's like, we like to be outdoors. It's like outdoors thing, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's people involved in this hobby that we do. They do the same kind of stuff that we do, but like, then we're finding out like, oh my gosh, they're also doing like OnlyFans on the side, right?
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden they're posting it on Instagram and like, hey, go follow my OnlyFans. And it's like, wow, it's a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
But,
I find it very surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're like going, well,
we're rambling.
We're rambling. I kind of forgot where we were headed with this, but
men want their wives to be slutty in the bedroom. The sluttiest version of themselves should be saved for their husband.
Yeah, but I don't think we're using the word slutty.
Well, you were trying not to.
Yeah. Well, just because to me, what it means, I mean, like maybe it means something different in modern times. Like, I don't know. I mean, I understand like a woman, a woman who is being provocative. And I think, is it okay to say provocative and not have provocative mean that you are seeking the attention of other men? Can you be provocative just for your man?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you go out in public, are you like presenting yourself in a more conservative fashion? And then at home, you are your provocative self. You're, flirty and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not as conservatively dressed,
Yeah.
freer.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe as I'm thinking through this, I mean, maybe slutty, maybe that, because you just said the word freer, but like maybe that's really what slutty is supposed to mean, which is, you are just your most free version of yourself, right? You're not holding anything back. You're just out there,
Yeah.
right? You're just putting it out there. And you know, I'm thinking that's in the context of you're putting it out there for anybody. But, you know, when you're saying that someone needs to be like the slutty version of themselves for their husband,
Yeah.
it's
Just,
kind of like all that minus like it's just for your husband.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, like when we were in high school, if somebody was like, oh, that girl's a slut, that just meant like she would do anything, but for anybody usually.
Right. For anybody.
Right.
I
So
mean, that's what I
think,
always understood it to mean.
yeah, but I think in this particular case, the implication is that it's behind closed doors for your husband. Like, you're not the neighborhood slut, you're your husband's slut.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think like, yeah,
maybe
I
I'm
mean,
getting
the
too
word,
hung up on the word. But
yeah, the word has a negative connotation when you think of it as the neighborhood slut, but this man is like, no, not for the neighborhood, just for your husband.
Yeah.
Like channel that inner, like free version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean,
Like drop your inhibitions a little bit and just
so it's
go
okay
for
to
it.
call your wife a slut. I mean, I still like.
I mean, I would probably appreciate it not, but
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, for me, like I think it's like we just talking about. I mean, we just grew up in a time, and like I said, maybe it means something different, but in the time that we were young and grew up, like, yeah, exactly right. Some girl in the school was a slut. She was sleeping with everybody.
yeah.
So like, I just can't really find myself saying.
But I think, like, I don't know, from the girl's side of things, she wasn't just sleeping with everybody. She was doing anything.
With
Like
anybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
She would quote do anything.
Yeah. But is that what made her the slut, or was it that she would do anything with anybody?
Well, I think the anybody made her the slut, but
Right.
she was a good slut because
Because-
she would also do anything.
Because I think that what we're advocating for is in a healthy marriage, to do anything
Yes.
is a good part of a healthy
Yes.
marriage.
I think if you're unwilling to do anything, like, and you're in high school, like you're not going to be a slut because the boys are not interested. Like, you know, that's what made them fun, the quote sluts, right? Because they would do anything with anybody. Like if you were a prude, you couldn't be a slut because you weren't going to do anything with anybody.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, it's all like just, what a mess, man. Because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I mean, in a way, you're right. Because especially younger men, right? They're like, yeah, I mean, they want those fun, slutty, do anything girls, right? But then they mature into men and they're thinking about getting married, and they're like, no, I don't want the girl who has been with the whole high school football team and
Right.
all the other stuff, right? So like,
Yeah.
it's just, it's all kind of broken in some ways.
Yeah. But it,
So,
you know, it goes hand in hand, right? Like you were desirable because you would do anything.
Yeah.
And that's how you became a slut.
But it made you less desirable later in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the whole body count situation we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, this is kind of one of those, it's like, it's almost good to be the nerd in a way, a little bit growing up, because it protects you from some of that stuff, right? Like maybe not being the most popular person and being all that. So, you know.
Yeah. I lettered in academics in high school. So.
Right. I know. Yeah. You and I were both kind of like, I don't know if I want to say nerdy. I don't know if anybody wants to say that about themselves, but we weren't like, I mean, I certainly had a time period when I was younger where I had friends and partied and stuff like that, but like I wasn't like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely more of a like, probably nerdy. It's a bad word. I don't know if it's a bad word to say, but it's like, I don't know. It's another word I get hung up on, but like, yeah, like you were more focused on academics and your dad kept you pretty well locked down and,
Yeah.
you know, those kind of things. And that's, you know, I applaud your dad for that.
Yeah.
You know,
He did a good job.
He did a good job with that. Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't know. Still have a problem with the word slut for referring to your wife. I need a different word.
You
but
need a different word.
yeah, I don't like it.
A lack of inhibitions.
A lack of inhibitions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something. But I think everybody, kind of the point being, I think you get what we're getting at without us getting too explicit, right? But like, don't, be like your husband and or your wife, should not be able to get a better, like, you should just be, there shouldn't be anything that they can get outside of the relationship that they can't get in the relationship. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the ideal. And
but going back to sex is a reflection of the relationship. It needs to be a safe place. Like you need to be able to express yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kind of back to, and it's funny how these same topics always circle back around because we kind of touched on this before too. But, like you were saying earlier, like a woman might feel or have a difficult time giving her kind of most uninhibited self to her husband because she's not happy with how she looks. Mm-hmm. Right. And so like a husband kind of maybe in needing to help encourage his wife to be the most uninhibited version of herself needs to be kind of mindful of that. Right. And like, if you want your wife to pull back and be cold and those sorts of things, like, maybe you should give her a little bit of encouragement if you're having those kind of problems.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you don't, then like maybe you kind of end up in that place. Like maybe you're, and I again, I don't know if we've said this before or not, but like, I mean, I have zero issue looking at you and saying, hey, like you could lose a couple pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
But then
no problem.
The flip side of that is that you don't gain a couple pounds in a day, and you certainly don't lose it in a day.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say was like, that is, but what goes along with that and kind of, is you have to give your wife some grace and like let her get back there. And part of the reason that I would say I have zero problem with saying that to you is like, there is a line somewhere. Right. Yeah. So if that line is, I'm just making a number up. Let's just say that 50 pounds is too far. It's over the line. Right. So if you're 50 pounds heavier than kind of what your spouse considers to be ideal, and you wait until that spouse is 50 pounds and you're like, I just cannot take this anymore and I have to say something about it. Right. Yeah. Well, guess what? Now your spouse has to lose 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And that is not going to happen overnight.
No.
And you're going to be in some, I don't want to call it misery, but you're not getting the best version of your spouse. And now you're going to have to wait months, maybe a year. It just depends, right? And sometimes figuring this stuff out is hard. It's hard. Somebody looks at you and says, you got to lose 50 pounds. And like, maybe you don't understand nutrition. Maybe you don't understand what you need to be doing activity wise. And it changes as you age. And there's like, it's just never like, it's not that straightforward. So kind of saying to your spouse early on and heading off these things before they become problems makes that easier. Right. Yeah. Because looking at you and saying, hey, like you need to lose a pound or two. Okay. Well, that's something that's very doable in a couple of weeks. Right.
Yeah.
I can make some pretty significant changes. So, or I can meet that, I can meet that in a couple weeks. So I don't, and I know that there's, sorry, makes somebody gasp because I know there's people out there that say, well, no, you should just accept your wife, for how she is. And that's no.
Well, there's a difference. You're going to accept me, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have the hard conversation.
Right. Well, what I mean by no is that it's.
But we've always agreed to have the conversation. I think you're speaking like to the relationship where that would be unheard of.
But I think it's only unheard of because you're not invested in your marriage, right?
Yeah.
If you are invested in your marriage and you're like, this thing is going to work and we care about each other and we love each other, you are going to do the things that are going to protect your marriage. Mm-hmm. And your spouse getting 50 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it is, overweight is not protecting your marriage. It is going to probably result in problems and potentially in problems that become unfixable.
Yeah.
Right. because, you know, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to tolerate adultery, you know, whatever, pulling back, emotionally pulling back, you know, dead bedrooms, like those sorts of things. And that's where you may end up. And then what did you do, right? I mean, because you kept your mouth shut because you wanted to be kind, or, you
Yeah.
know, whatever it is that you were like, you know, or you were listening to some of these more, you know, extreme feminist views that like you cannot, you know, you be happy with your spouse no matter what. Well, that's fine. You can adopt that view, but you're going to have trouble,
Yeah.
right?
Now,
So
I don't think the bedroom gets dead overnight either, right? So like it
no,
would
I don't
be a
think any of this happens in a
slow, yeah,
day.
it
But
would be a slow decline.
but that's why I say it's important to head it
Yeah.
off early.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't have any issue with it.
Yeah.
You know, just like I would expect you, you know, if I'm, you know, maybe I'm, you know, maybe I'm struggling in my career, or maybe I'm not, like the things that are bringing security, right? Because, you know, an important component, not to say women don't care about the attraction of their man. They do, right? But it's not like men don't really, most men do not care how educated the woman is. They don't care, like they don't look to the woman for security. They don't, right? It's like, there's other qualities, right? But women, you know, those qualities that are important to them, that can cause a problem in a relationship. Like if they don't feel stable, right? You know, those
Yeah.
sorts of things. Like in the same way, I think it'd be perfectly fine to say to your husband, like, hey, like I am not feeling secure in this relationship because X, Y, Z. You know, like let's do something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's completely appropriate. Again, if you care about your marriage, these are the things you're going to do. So,
Agreed.
yeah. Well, I know you and I agree.
Yeah.
We've been living it for 30 plus years, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't, you know, and I've said this before too, but like, I mean, we did not have all this figured out at first,
No.
right?
We come from 2 divorced homes.
Yeah,
So, you know, missing a role model in each version.
yeah,
So it was definitely learning on the go.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Someone's got to figure this stuff out. So, you know, and I just want to make sure we point that out, that anybody who happens to listen to this, is that we're not, you know, it's not like shaming anyone, right? That is the reality of people. People grow up without, and they get into relationships and they don't know. They just don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to
Yeah.
give people grace, and that's part of the reason that we kind of decided to start doing this publicly is, you know, we've got a few years under our belt. You know, maybe there's
Long
some
in the tooth, as they
long in the
say.
tooth. Yeah. You know, and we don't have it all figured out, but we have some experience. We have things that we've lived through. We've, you know, we had to kind of learn along the way. And if we can impart any of that to, you know, younger couples, or, you know, that are, or maybe couples that aren't younger, but just haven't been as married as long as we have, right? And they're still working through those issues, then so be it. You know, maybe we can say something that's somewhat helpful.
I think the biggest thing that we've learned applies across the board, and that's talk about it.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, we might have something come up and we have different opinions, but we both state our opinion and we both consider the other person's opinion. Or if one of us has an issue, we bring it up and then we sort of tear that down as we talk about it and see how we feel about it. And wow, I just sound like a woman there. See how we feel about it. But
it's women. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's what you have to do, right? Like if you're having a problem or if I'm having a problem, we have agreed that it's a safe space to come to one another and be like, hey, I'm having this problem. Can we like talk about it, see how we got here, see how we can fix it? Can it be fixed?
Yeah.
Do I have to accept it?
Yeah. And it's a much better, it just makes a lot more sense to me, right? Because if you're not having that conversation, like I hate to keep harping on this, but you know, if I'm not coming to you and saying like, hey, lose a couple of pounds, and you know, now you're finding out that this whole thing is going on because a year from now, like I'm sleeping with whoever, right?
Right.
You know,
But yeah.
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 So like, again, like if you care about, you got married for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so
Yeah.
if you actually care about
You were
this
the love
person,
of my life.
yeah, exactly. So if you care about this person, you know, I mean, I assume most marriages you didn't marry because you, I mean, sure, there are some marriages of convenience, different topic, but you know, most marriages you got together, you're in a relationship because you actually cared about that person.
Mm-hmm.
So care enough about that person to have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on that same topic too, I mean, one of the things that I think we've learned is if your spouse seems off and you say, "Are you okay?" and they say, "Yes," but you still think that they're not, you just have to give them that time.
Yeah. Because they may be processing about
Yeah.
how they want to express the problem that they're having.
Yeah. Or
Without,
they process and discover it's not as big a deal as they thought in the moment.
yeah.
And then it would never have to be talked about. But if you force the topic, it can sometimes just be worse.
Yeah. So you're saying the timing could be bad.
Yeah.
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 Like if you seem off and I'm like, ugh, probably done something bad. And I'm like, hey, are you okay? You seem a little eh. And you're like, I'm fine. I have to let that go. No matter if I'm like, you're not fine. I want to know why you're not fine. Like,
yeah. Well, and sometimes it may not have anything to do with the other person too, right? And that's something to realize too, which is I think kind of to your point. Like sometimes you just gotta let it go because I think we tend to focus and think, oh my gosh, it's something on my end. They're mad at me, right? And it's like, no, it's like I got some other thing happened outside of our relationship that's, you know, you're thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So have the conversation, but only when the other person is ready.
Yeah. Well, what do you think signals ready? You have to wait for them, basically.
Yeah, you have to wait for them.
Yeah.
For you, it's usually when I storm into the room with my arms flailing around and my voice is a little bit higher than usual.
When you're ready to talk about
or
it.
I'm crying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my signal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your signal is you walk in the room and go,
yeah, I probably do that.
that's what you do.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I don't know. We beat up on this enough.
I think so.
Okay. Well, we are gonna, you know, let's try to do this again.
Be fun, frisky, and free.
Be fun,
There you
frisky,
go.
and free. Yeah. Is that the title of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna come up with a better one.
Slutty.
The slutty podcast. Yeah. I don't know. We'll come up with something.
All
but
right.
yeah, we need to be trying to do this more. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
And
we're doing it anyways. So
yeah. All right.
we just need to sit here in front of the camera.
We'd be talking about this stuff anyway. So, okay. Well, hopefully a couple days, and we're gonna also try out our thing here at some point. We're kind of being out doing stuff we do and trying to have some conversations. Don't know how it's gonna work, but we'll find out.
Okay.
All right. Well, hope you guys, you know, had some fun hanging out with us, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.
Bye.